going to be roll for 10 years. But happy that's what that was.
So I guess we'll call to order. I'll be the chair for this meeting this evening. Elizabeth, our chair, was unable to make it due to a family emergency. So call to order is 6:05 to start the recording. And can I ask the clerk for a roll call?
Committee Member Brock.
Here.
Committee Member Davis.
Here.
Committee Member Cara. Is not here yet. Vice Chair Virgil.
Here.
And Chair Vandenberg is absent. But we have four.
Great. Thank you. I guess the next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. There's no flag, so I can just pretend there's a flag.
All right.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. That was a little bit out of order, but okay. So public input. Public input is permitted only on items not on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of this body. State law prohibits the body from taking any action on items not listed on the agenda, including issues raised under this agenda item. So I'd like to ask the clerk, is there any public speakers?
Yes, I received one request to speak for item 1, Ms. Martin. And then Elizabeth Viber for item.
Good evening. Tonight I'd like to focus on how neither Audit Subcommittee member Phil Brock and Christine Farah, who were both here last November when Moss Adams gave their report on the audit of social services, failed to mention that neither the Community Services Department or the people concerned submitted current accounting for the audit by Moss Adams. Instead, Christine Farah praised staff extensively, and Phil Brock kissed up to John Sari at the 1923 City Council meeting, which would make me wonder if city staff is doing what a former DTSM staff member did up in Northern California when he was on the police force. As I brought to your attention at a previous City Council meeting, Richard Morongo used a valid credit card for personal purchases like San Francisco 49ers tickets. I asked because might that explain the city employees of the Community Services Department certificate lag time recorded receipt and expenses of funds. Then, due to the significant lag time of posting this information, is why I say city staff didn't turn in their accounting for the audit was because it obviously was concurrent. In addition to the people concerned with holding their accounting for Moss Adams audit, makes the City Council's action of freezing their funding questionable at best. Due to a history of their street team not filling out paperwork in a timely manner, as well as they have had numerous situations with the Los Angeles County Health Department since the beginning of the pandemic, including but not limited to storing their cooking utensils under the singular kitchen. But the City Council found these actions to be appropriate. Thank you.
And I believe Ms. Barton was our only request to speak. Are there any other requests?
Okay. Thank you. With no other speaker requests, we're going to move on to item number 2, approval of the minutes. So if we look at the August 16 minutes regular meeting, does anybody have any comments on the minutes? No comments on the minutes? Then does someone want to move to approve the August 16th minutes of 2022?
Move to approve the August 16th, 2022 minutes.
Second.
Vice Chair Verbal, just for the record, we do not have any requests to speak on this item.
Okay, thank you. I'll make sure I count that on the next one. So approved, the minutes for August 16, 2022 are approved. Are there any speakers for the February 21st, 2023 minutes? Thank you. Are there any comments on the February 21, 2023 minutes? I have a comment. There are no other comments. On page 4 of the minutes, it says a motion by Vice Chair Verville, seconded by Rock, to evaluate risk, and it goes on that paragraph. That's fine, but that's the risk analysis report that Moss Adams is, I believe, still working on. The next motion is related to the homelessness report, and that report was not unanimously approved. I was the sole dissenting voice on that report. So I think, is that correct?
That was.
That was the November
Yeah.
report. Okay, I take that back. I retract that comment. I have no other comments.
All right, move to approve the February 21st, 2023 minutes.
Is there a second? Rock, second that. It passes. I vote to approve, so the minutes of February 21, 2023 are approved. Moving on to item 3, ethics hotline update. I believe we have a staff presentation.
Good evening, Audit Subcommittee members. My name is Robert Scalise. I'm the Human Resources Manager for Labor and Employee Relations in the HR Department. And I'm here tonight to give you an update on the Ethics Hotline. To strengthen the City of Santa Monica's commitment to the highest standards of good governance, the City Council has adopted a values-based code of ethics for all city staff, and it did so on November 24th, 2015. It's based on 4 principles: fairness, transparency, accountability, and integrity. I'll just highlight some of the key bullets under each of those 4 principles. Under fairness, I value all stakeholders and treat all people with dignity. I follow city processes and maintain objectivity in my decision making. I provide equal access to all, and I respect diversity of opinions. Integrity. I am a guardian of the public's trust. I represent the city well, refraining from acts that may bring reproach or discredit to the city. I use public resources appropriately, not for private benefit or political purposes. And I decline and I do not seek gifts and other special treatment. Transparency. I support the public's right to know by making information accessible. I facilitate public involvement in decision-making processes. And I disclose information that may be perceived as a conflict of interest. And the 4th principle, accountability. I accept individual and collective responsibility for my actions. I adhere to laws, policies, standards of conduct, and report violations. And I am the 5 R's, reliable, respectful, resourceful, responsive, and reflective. And in order to ensure that individuals can report possible ethical violations by city staff of these 4 principles, the city has made available both an online reporting system as well as a telephone reporting system. Human Resources is the clearinghouse for the receipt of ethics hotline complaints. HR determines and filters those based on content, and I'll get into that a little bit, how best to address them thoroughly and promptly. Sometimes HR will manage the entire complaint all the way through. Sometimes we will consult with the city attorney's office, HR advisor. And sometimes we will consult with a particular department where the complaint stems from or is about, and they will take care of the complaint, always with HR's assistance if necessary. And we do stress that if you witness Santa Monica staff in a possible ethical violation, we're encouraging it to be reported. There are these, this is black and white version, we have these flyers, we call them, prominently displayed throughout the city, which provides the basic information to all citizens and city staff to report a possible ethical violation and the ways to go about it. We do not currently have any active, open ethical violations that are being complaints that are being investigated. We have had only 2 that have been made since January 1 of 2023, and based on the categories that we provide individuals for informing us of the kind of individual they are, staff, citizen, and the nature of the complaint, I can report that those 2 were filed on February 9th by a citizen, who's in that category, and the category of the type of complaint is discrimination, harassment, or violence. And I'm pleased to report that those 2 complaints have since been resolved. So only those 2 have been filed since January 1 of this year. Do any members of the committee have any questions for me on the ethics hotline? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So does someone want to make a motion to receive and file the comments report?
Chair, just for the record, we do not have any requests.
Okay.
Sure, I will.
Second.
I vote in favor, so that motion passes 3-0. Thank you. Item 4, print shop audit progress report update. There's a staff presentation.
I'm going to jump in here and just kind of talk about why we're doing this. Print shop has been a report that we did several years ago, and it was pre-COVID. A lot of things have changed, and we wanted Rigo to have a chance to kind of talk about what's going on, because we feel like this project has been completed, and we kind of want your blessing of putting this, setting this aside and being able to move forward. So that's what Rigo's going to be talking about tonight.
Good evening. My name is Rigo Calderon. I'm the support service supervisor. I oversee the print shop and the mailroom. I just want to discuss, we'll update the status of the last few items that were recently completed on the audit report. Since the last report, we have made a lot of progress. We've I'm sure some of you know we have a whole new web-to-print system, which was one of the main items that we needed to finish up here to develop a digital service catalog and marketing strategy to educate. We did this with our web-to-print. We've implemented a new web-to-print system with images, descriptions available of all the products and services. Customers are now better able to navigate the website upon implementation. Support service staff provided live webinars when we introduced this new item, and with the city experiencing a high level of turnover and making it necessary constantly to train, we've also included how-to videos on the website. In addition, we also still have people that have questions. We do a lot of we share the screen. We're able to walk them through, and once that's done, we've had a very positive feedback on that. We did do an initial survey. Again, this is pre-COVID. We got a lot of good feedback, and we implemented that on our purchase of the web-to-print system. We weren't able to do much of a survey during COVID, but we are going to continue doing this on an annual basis to get feedback on how we're doing, how we could improve our services, products, and what services we have to offer. One of the big things I think we wanted to do here is define the print shop service philosophy, priorities, and our upcoming projects. The print shop's philosophy and priorities are to meet all the demands from the city's departments by producing high-quality, sustainable products in accordance with the city's sustainability guidelines, which in itself it's very tough. I mean, it's a lot of work getting that done. To be able to bring most of the print jobs in-house, we try to do as much as we can in-house, and we try to let everyone know to ask us before they bend down to any outside vendors. And so far, I've gotten a pretty good response from certain departments. They'll ask me if we can do this, and half the time I tell them we've got new equipment, and we keep kind of trying to improve our equipment. And I tell them yes, we can do that, and they're like pleasantly surprised. Or other times we tell them no, we can't right now, but we are looking into this new process. To be able to bring the print jobs in-house, we're doing this with the right size staffing, latest technology and equipment. We're trying to increase productivity and efficiency. Right now, in the near future, we're looking to acquire a new printer. It's called, it's a large format. It's a flatbed printer. This will enable us to print on a hard surface. Currently, right now, we print on adhesive vinyl, like a big sticker, and we have to put it onto a board, put it onto plastic. This machine is going to allow us to print on foam, plastic, plexi, glass, metal, wood. In addition to that, it'll help us create signage with texture, and I have some samples that I could pass around. Some of the items, just pass them down. Some of the texture even includes Braille. So we're always expanding, trying to see what we can do for the city, where we don't have to send out to outside vendors. All this is done with our current budget. We're not asking for any more money. We consolidate to more efficient machines, and we work within our budget to increase our service offering. One of the last things, to develop a master service agreement with preferred vendors to facilitate outsourced jobs on behalf of the department. This was started, and RFQ was complete prior to COVID, and it showed that the print shop costs were lower than the vendors. But right now, due to COVID, these quotes are outdated. They're no longer valid. Plus, some of the vendors have gone out of business. Right now, like I said, we're trying to meet the needs of the city as far as printing, and we're going to use the surveys to really kind of narrow down what we need to do to increase our offering. That's it.
Are there any questions? I have a few. In the audit report, it said that approximately half of the customers lack familiarity with the full suite. Have you made progress in getting the word out as far as what your capabilities are and how are you communicating?
Yeah, I mean, initially this was when we had our old web-to-print system. It was not intuitive. It was it wasn't designed as a print workflow. It was more of a marketing system. What I did is I went to the print companies and we wanted to get a web-to-print that was specifically designed for print shops. And that is part of that, what we've done, and we've educated a lot of people. We've done webinars. We've hosted webinars. I believe we did like 3 different webinars, different dates, different times, to try to get as many people as possible. And again, most of the people, they love it. And they've our biggest clients, they really like it. We incorporated a single sign-on with ISD, so your network login is your login to the system. So we've incorporated, try to make it as easy as possible.
Excellent. Does the city track in the accounting system? Are you able to see total expenditures on outside, for example, on print? Let's say outside print, so you understand his department plus outside print expenditures, what the total amount that's being spent on print, and maybe then give them a target to capture more of that total? I mean, is there visibility to that degree?
Yeah, we capture that information with a little bit of digging into the transaction detail. We get that information. We don't have these 2 separate line items, but it's all under print.
So does he know what his market share is on spend in the city as far as how much of the print is going through his shop versus the total print expenditure in the city?
I don't know that Rigo knows for sure, but if he asks, we can tell him. We have that information. People still, if there's a job that if for some reason these guys don't have time to do it, as you know, we have labor shortages throughout the city, and there's a lot of different jobs that are going on at the same time. They may not be able to get to something, so we may need to go outside. But so we try to be as flexible as possible. We won't stop a job so that they get.
No, I get that. I'm just thinking from a kind of an annual goal targeting perspective. If he knows that he's capturing 60% of the city's business, maybe he tries to capture 70% next year, something like that, right? So that it kind of helps, just from a department objectives perspective.
Sure.
So there was and I realize this is 2019. They were talking about a move, and if they did the move, then it would increase their cost to manage an average of 35% more than outside vendor quotes. Is that comment still valid? I mean, did the move occur?
No, the move did not occur. We were looking at moving into the airport. I mean, we got estimates on the move-in, on the renovations and the improvements that needed to be done, and it was very costly. It was very costly, and again, that was pre-COVID. Once COVID hit, any funds that would have been used, I mean, I know it was over $1 million, really. A lot of electrical, Edison had to be called in for power. A lot of our equipment runs on 220, so a lot of power would have to be brought into those offices. So, but no, that did not happen.
And I think also at the time you needed to move out of city yards because there was pre-COVID there was a little bit of a different plan for city yards. With COVID, there was some shifting around spaces, and so they were able to stay in their city-owned, property. So
basically, their competitiveness still is around that 2% that's mentioned in the report, kind of on a pre-move basis, within 2% of outside
their
quotes.
competitiveness is, I don't know if it's a 2%, but it's less. They are much cheaper now to what they were back when we were looking at that.
Also, at the time of the report, we were paying the rent
Right, exactly.
on 17th Street.
Yeah.
So now you're consolidated.
Well, that lease has expired and we're no longer paying that. It was being subleased to the school district, but we're no longer taking care of that. That's already done.
So what that means then is, in the last council meeting, I guess it was a maintenance contract, almost $1 million over 5 years. It was approved. So even with that, you're still competitive as far as your cost structure is concerned.
Yes.
And so, and how does that work? Do they bill out to the departments of cost? Is that how their full cost recovery of their department in their billing rates?
No.
No. We do materials and like equipment, whatever the click fees. So we do the paper cost and the click charge.
So when it comes to, and so general fund to general fund it's all the same thing.
Right.
We know when the analysis was done, we went beyond materials. We looked at everything.
Right.
We did the full cost allocation. For other funds, when we're not dealing just with the general fund, even though these guys charge people the amount of the specific piece, when we do cost allocation, which is a plan that we do every couple of years, we update, we actually allocate per unit. Like, for example, they would say, well, we do this much work for the airport or this much work for water or wastewater, and so we allocate the administration of it, the maintenance and all that kind of stuff in there.
So it's a full burden, but it's not a full burden when they're providing quotes to their customers, their internal customers.
Right. General, yes.
Right. It's an after fact.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I mean, those were my questions. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Brock.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Are you fully staffed in your department?
Right now, we are. I know with COVID, we did lose a position, but we do have we have 2 operators and two mail couriers. So and everyone's cross trained. So right now, we would be fully staffed. Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one more question I have. In the project summary, is all of the they're not milestones, or they're the observations and the. Anyways, that's that long schedule we have in the back, right? There are 2 for the print shop that say in progress. So is that just not updated? And
No,
this meeting we're done.
I think it was in progress. It's updated now. It's been complete.
Okay, so
it's been
the
updated.
schedule I have is outdated. Those 2 in progress are now done. The entire report is complete.
Yes.
Correct.
If it says ongoing, we treat ongoing as complete. It just means that it's something that.
No, this one said in progress.
Okay. Yeah,
so.
that must have been the older version.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. Any other questions? Okay, well, do we have a motion to file and receive the report?
I vote.
Second.
I vote, we have a roll call.
For the record, no request is made.
There's no what?
No request is made.
For some reason, that line just escapes my agenda. Thank you. Then I guess we have a voicemail.
Oh, yes, and then since we're meeting in person, it can be a voice vote, it doesn't have to be a roll call.
A roll call, okay. Can we have a roll call vote?
Oh, it does not have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
No, so you can all say aye.
Aye.
Or any no's.
No no's. Passes unanimously.
Okay.
Okay. On to item number 5. Airport property management study. And we have a staff presentation. We have a Moss Adams presentation. Excellent.
In person.
In person. Good evening, everyone. Colleen Rosillas with Moss Adams. So I'm just going to give a little bit of an overview of what we did, and then my colleague Jeff will talk about the details. So some of you may recall that our fiscal year 2019-2020 internal audit work program had a property management study for the airport. We were just about complete with the draft of that in the summer of 2020 when we decided, hey, there's a lot of stuff going on and we're going to pause this and we'll pick it back up when we have more capacity. So several months ago, the airport was ready to pick this back up. So we added it to this year's work program and completed the study, provided input on progress toward those draft recommendations that we had made since staff and management had a draft report and were making progress, and then tried to look at the airport with some fresh eyes. So our scope of work was to really look at the property management function within the airport itself, to look at personnel, what folks were doing, opportunities for improvement, as we always do in service delivery, organization and structure, efficiency and effectiveness, operations, as well as how the airport was doing in terms of actually managing leases, opportunities to enhance property performance and improve lease compliance. We also did compare the airport to other comparable municipal airports where it was appropriate. So we reviewed this with staff and have checked all the recommendations with them to make sure that they are reasonable and implementable. And I'm going to let Jeff go through our 13 findings and recommendations.
Oh, there's a chair here too. Hi everyone, thank you for allowing me to come. I was going to go through a summary review from the 2020 report to this report, so you could. There's really two main items that kind of progressed from the last report to this one, and just focused on the getting a stable staff, right? Because you'd gone from a lease situation in the airport to bringing that in-house, trying to establish a team. And that was one of the challenges, right, when COVID hit, right? So I think there's been really good progress in establishing the team and getting them on board and getting them up and running. The other thing I think that was very positive from the first report to the second report was that the leasing process has been improved, which is a big help as you try to to prepare these buildings for getting market tenants into the space and so forth. And so, just try to summarize and encapsulate those two main items. So you go through the specifics on this. Going forward, our understanding is the goal is to get the portfolio at the airport to operate to industry standards. And so to do that, you've got to give the team that's now in place, you've got to give them the tools to make that successful, right? And so in the report, we've identified reviewing systems that you currently have to see if we can get those systems to actually generate industry standard reports so that you don't have to go out and find a new system to come in, right? And then those reports, we're going to build. The recommendation is to use those reports to help the team manage day-to-day things, get financial reports, get simple reports like lease abstracts, to do rent rolls and those types of things. We also are going to, we reviewed the processes and protocols that you have in place and how the team goes through everything from doing procurement for contracts and those types of things, and what they have in place, how they work with tenants. Right, a tenant has a work order and it says, I need to have a light bulb replaced. Well, what's the system in place for that, for those staff members to get that light bulb replaced? How do they communicate with the tenant back and forth? They also talk about how do you get your how do tenants pay rent, right? Sometimes the tenants just drop off a check at the office. Sometimes they have to go and deposit them. And we want to come up with a way that makes that more, really readily trackable by a system. And so the tenants can do that automatically, and that will make the team more efficient and focused. So there's a lot in this report. I think we can talk about going forward. We can talk about what's in the report. And I'd like to just open it up to really take questions, because I can go through and read this sentence by sentence, but I don't want to put everybody asleep doing that, so I'd like to focus on the things that people are focused on with responding to your questions, if that makes sense.
We have a question.
Yeah, please.
I actually have several questions.
Yeah, fire away.
Well, let's talk about the last thing we talked about first. I was shocked to find out that people still pay their rent by check.
Yes, some of them do. Yes, because well, one of the problems is first understand that the city, you guys already have really strong software systems. Yardi it's an industry standard software that allows you to do tenant administration, it allows you to do reporting, it allows you to do budgeting, and these tools aren't being utilized to where they should be. And and there's also a tool in that where you're not accepting credit card payments right now. So a lot of your smaller tenants aren't able to pay by a credit card, and so we want to be able to offer that service to them. So yes, tenants still pay by check. Your management team still has to take checks to the bank.
Okay, that's wasteful. Right. I mean, so I found that shocking. I can't remember the last time I paid anything with a check.
Me either.
And so right. So it seems to me either automatic deposits, electronic.
You can do it automatic, yes.
Or I know a lot of small businesses like to use these credit cards that have benefits like the Smart Card because they get a 1% back or whatever. But
You guys still have, you guys done a great. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say. So my question is, how do we stop that?
Well, we stopped that by giving the team the system that allows them to work with the tenants to pay it automatically. And right now, that's part of our going forward plan. But right now, you don't have that, and so we want to help your team get that established and do that.
Okay, good. I'm going to skip around because I actually. So the second question I had was on the property management and leasing process, and there was references to RFPs, and I thought we had moved away from RFPs and moved more into a broker environment. Am I wrong about that?
You're not wrong about that.
Okay.
You're not wrong, but there still is an approval process, right? So and it depends on this. Yeah, the size of the deal. That's the part was my comment about how it's improved. So that's the part that has improved. It still takes a while, but it's better now, so yes, it's getting better.
Because I mean, my question, to some extent, is what I think we've found over time is the RFP process is very cumbersome for small businesses and diverse businesses. They don't even know those RFPs are out there, whereas a broker can go out and look for tenants, one that we might prefer to have, and people will go through a broker. So we are in a broker environment now?
You are. Yes,
okay,
you are.
Good. Yes. Glad to hear it. Because I saw the word RFP, RFP and my heart sees.
Yes, you're right. My heart does too. I'm thinking about the small tenant.
It just seems like a bad way to lease property.
Yeah.
All over, I've been arguing against them here and other places as well. And then the other question I have is sort of through the whole report, was this idea about obviously the airport is likely, I don't know what the right verb to use is without being excoriated somehow, likely to close in 2028. And obviously it would seem to me that would create an issue for both current staff and to the extent we need to hire more staff, saying, hi, you want to come work at an airport that's not going to be here in 5 years, might not be the most conducive. So I'm going to make a comment, then I'm going to ask a question. So I know when we closed the Civic Auditorium, Gigi probably remembers this, and we didn't do it 5 years out, but we did have a process where we started to work with the current employees to find jobs for them other places in the organization. And I know it's a little different now post-COVID and we've reorganized. I understand all of that. But I'm just wondering at some point, does it make sense for us, rather than just to say, oh, don't worry your pretty little head, in 5 years, it's way up, that, we start to, because you have in here like working with those employees and communicating with them. Yeah. But I think would it make sense to even go maybe one step farther and start to work with them and say, here's your skill set. This is a skill set that will also translate over to, and maybe it's administering the airport after it closes. The airport's not going to vaporize. I mean, there's going to be a big plot of land there, or being part of that process, or you have a certain skill set, for example, in real estate leasing that we can use somewhere else. I mean, does it make sense for us to start to do that, and at what point? Because we want to get good people, and I just don't think good people are going to come to something that they know is not going to be there in a little bit.
Yeah, I think you have two really good opportunities, right? Depending on what happens with the non-airport properties, right? So the non-airport properties, as soon as you can communicate whether you're going to keep those, right? Because they're revenue generating properties. So that's still valuable, right? And as you try to look through what your plan is for what's next. So you have still the opportunity to keep those employees working down that path. The second opportunity is that you're the city of Santa Monica. You have a broad employee base here in Santa Monica, and you're going to have a well-trained team that, in my experience, these real estate staff members, if it's not going to be operating your real estate, they should have the skills to effectively work in the different departments that you've got in the city. They're going to have great skills as they get through this.
Okay, great.
Does that make? So I think you've got two really good opportunities there that allow you to keep and attract new employees.
Right, because I'm just worried about attracting good people because we know it's hard to find people.
It's the message, but I think you should now, as soon as you can, just be communicating that. Listen, we're not. If we close on whatever that date is, we don't just get. We're not just going to kick you out. We've got really good opportunities here for you within the city, and we will work with you to make sure that you don't have to worry about that exit.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those were my questions.
Any other questions? I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Can you just outline for me who is the management at the airport? When I read the report, it says there's a dedicated city team overseen by the airport commission that reports to the council, but the airport commission is not on the org charts. And then on the org charts, you've got Director of Public Works, you've got Stelios, who's the airport director, airport ops admin, Diana Calderon. So when we say management, who is the management here? Who makes the decisions?
Well,
there's on the ground,
yeah.
Stelios,
Right.
who reports to Ray, who reports to me.
Okay.
Well, then the on-site, you go from Diana to Rhea and her team, right? So I'm not sure if I'm.
It's just there's a reason why I'm asking, but I'm just trying to figure out when you're managing these teams, who's in charge of these teams, right? For example, there was quite a bit of discussion in the report about roles and responsibilities.
Yeah.
What management person is in charge of making sure that that's clarified?
I can tell you.
You are. Okay. That seems to be a recurring theme in the report, mentioned more than once. So I was just wondering, it seems to be an ongoing issue, and is this something that is, do we have a path to actually?
Yeah, let's talk about that. That's a really good question. I think this comes back to, again, you've had this team that's been doing triage on the airport portfolio, right? And not having the tools to make them effective. And so what happens is without some of those tools, you don't have relief so they can to allow them to focus on specific things. And so you got a team there that's doing a lot of different things at the same time. And so that's causing little confusion because it's causing cross communication across different levels. And because if the tenant's calling you, whether you're Stelios, whether you're Rhea, whatever you're Diana, you're going to want to try to help that tenant, right? And so usually you've got somebody that's on that front line with clear direction, has the tools, whether it's work order systems, whatever it is, right, that you want to have in there. Then they've got direct, specific direction of what to do. So right now that's a little bit up in the air, and that's why you're seeing a lot of comments from your staff saying that sometimes the communication chain is complicated, and that's one of our focuses to fix that, right? Because if we can provide the right tools to make your team efficient, they'll be focused on what they're supposed to do, and I think those lines of communications will become much clearer.
Well, I think roles and responsibilities. The definition of those is it's always moving based upon the automated environment, right? But at the end of the day, even if it's entirely manual, there should be clear roles and responsibilities, even though it's everyone who's got a rubber stamp and an ink pad doing their thing, right? So I'm just not clear that tools matter as much as clear direction from management, which is what one of the things that in this report was kind of screaming, which was didn't seem to be happening. That was concerning. Another question is, why is there 479 leases at the airport? There's not 479.
Well, I think it's
so the building. So is it? And Aeroplex has 150, and then there's a 329. I guess the city manages. How is that? And there's 2 people at Aeroplex managing 150. Is it the same kind of productivity on the city side? Is it an inordinately complex environment where there's opportunities to simplify things? I don't know.
yes.
Excellent. That's what I wanted to hear.
Well, 379 tenants, it's really hard to figure out how much manpower that takes if we don't have, listen, I don't want to keep talking about systems, right?
Well, we'll get to systems.
Right, but there are tools, right, that allows Stelios and Diana or even Maria to evaluate how much time it's taking to do certain tasks. Right, and how much, and these are industry standards. For example, how much time does it take to respond to a work order? And the work order is when a tenant has an issue that they want to get completed, or it could be just simply you're a janitor person walking around the building and say, "Well, listen, I've got a broken planter over here. I need fixed." So that person can also enter in a work order. There's no history of how much time that's taking, right? And without having the ability for your tenants that are dropping off checks at the office, right? That now requires the staff to go to the bank and deposit those checks. A work order, now going back to that, is done by a tenant sending an email to 5 different people in your management staff, and then one of those people picks that work order up and then has to go and enter it into the work order system now. And there's one person that then receives that and then has to delegate that out to whoever's going to take that out, right? So I see. So your expression is perfect, right? Because you would never expect that, right? And so all those things comes back to your point, which is how do we make them more efficient? They've got to have the tools to do that, and that'll help them with roles and responsibilities. It'll help give you a sense, even the committee here, right? It'll help give all of you the sense of you can actually have data in front of you, and you can start looking at. That's why we're having here about doing KPIs, key performance indicators, because now we can say, top line or bottom line NOI. Your NOI is basically net income. What is that per square foot? Well, if that means that you're at $20 per square foot, but the market's at $30 a foot, you're going to say, why aren't we at market? If we're going to say that your industry response for a work order, you should be able to respond within the first hour, and your average response ends up being 2 hours, you're wondering why that is. If we actually get to a completion of the work order, and the average completion of a work order is 2 weeks, where it should be 2 days, now Stelios and his team can start working through that and say, okay, here's the bottleneck, right? We can come up with financial reports per building, and then the portfolio, right? As you're looking at per building, we can see, well, building A is $4 a square foot in electrical cost. Building B is only, $2 in electrical cost. What's going on, right? So all those metrics that the industry operates with, you're running a little blind right now with your airport portfolio.
No, I understand that. Again, the roles and responsibilities can be clear regardless of the if it's an inefficient operation, at least everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing in their level of inefficiency, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I don't like conflating the two issues. I mean, better tools are always better. Market data, competitiveness, just streamlining efficiencies. But roles and responsibilities stand by themselves, regardless of whatever environment is. They're appropriate to the environment in which you're operating, right? Now, are there things to be learned from Aeroplex? I mean, do they have? Are their roles and responsibilities defined by Stelios, or do they have their own as an outsourced vendor? Do they have their own roles and responsibilities, and are they kind of do they have like best practices? Can the city learn from what they're doing because they seem to be kind of efficient? Has that been explored?
Well, I think what Aeroplex does really well is the leasing side.
Okay.
They've got it down really well, right? And that's why that's been one of the improvements. And I think there might be a comment in the report. We should adopt we should look at that and see if we can adopt that to the non-Aeroplex, to the regular team, right?
Absolutely.
So there are some benefits there that we can learn from. In terms of operating, I think the operations of some of the the airport facilities is different than running the day-to-day operations for the occupied buildings, right? I mean, hangar space is different than office space, and so I don't have enough information to tell you Aeroplex is great, other than what we've learned from the leasing aspect in terms of operating, 2 people for 179 leases versus 5 people for the other portfolio. We don't have enough information to be able to really answer that question, but you can see that those are just different, right? Different buildings, they require different things, and so it's like you can make an assumption like if I'm running an office portfolio, I've got 4 people for every 500,000 square feet. If I'm doing an industrial portfolio, I've got 4 people for every 2 million square feet. Does that make sense?
Right.
And we can start. Once we start getting more information, I think we can help with some of those questions.
I just want to pick up a point that community member Davis mentioned. The city must have it, rather than leaving everyone kind of in the dark and promising the job in the future, there must be some baseline assumption that the city can come up with on the revenue generating properties that probably will stay revenue generating, right? From what I've read, some people are counting on monetizing those revenues to pay for the park construction and all that good stuff. So the question is to kind of at least set up a floor for the level of activity. I would imagine there's something that can be done. We don't have to wait until 2028 or 2029 to basically figure that out and leave the employees hanging, in the meantime. So it just seems to be odd that it's there's a map in the public process that says that it's only 187 acres, and then there's the buildings, and and I think a lot of the revenue is non-aviation revenue. So there must be some baseline that's going to stick around that a systems plan can be built around and that kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it seems to me that that's something that could be. You don't have to wait forever to make that happen.
No, you don't.
Exactly. Let's talk. We've talked a lot about tools, and we're talking about your systems. And the report I was a bit surprised in getting through the report. So and I can't pronounce the system, but basically the Pro DigiQ system was approved for implementation to be kind of a Swiss knife approach to managing everything at the airport. And I guess that's before 2020, 2019, it was before that. From what I read, it didn't go so well. So one question I have is, was there an implementation partner for that system, or was that entirely done in-house?
I think Stelios can probably answer it the best. I'm not sure what that prodigious. I understand what happened, but I'm not sure how it was implemented and so forth.
Okay, so the Prodigy software came in for implementation. It was in-house trying to implement it. So they promised more than they could deliver.
They being
Prodigy.
Prodigy. So that was your implementation partner.
It was our implementation partner. That's correct.
Okay.
So what they tried to do is create. They came in and said, "We can do anything you want." So at that time, and let me provide some context so you can understand. The staff at the airport property management, the reason we have 408 leases because some of them are license agreements by IDAM aircraft. So you have a significant amount of that. So when you hear 408 leases, I'm like, oh my God, you don't have no way. That's absolutely. So we needed a software that could provide two things. The ability for a tenant to pay electronically. That was our number one thing, that could use our city's processes on credit card payments to do so. Two, an interface that a tenant can file their request for, everything that it could easily put in their work orders to us so we can address them. Again, the piece that they didn't deliver on is the simple property management. Everything else they could give us, but they couldn't give us the property management. So after the implementation, we looked at the software and we did a comparison of the data from Yardi, which still have, and the accounting from Prodigy. And they were all significantly off the revenues. So it didn't make sense to us, so we couldn't continue. So now we're back to Yardi. Now take into perspective, and I'll take full responsibility on the airport's real estate. I've been involved with it for a very long time. But now take the pandemic, 2020 hit, have no property management whatsoever, none. So Diana here, the administrator, is wholeheartedly by herself and me, trying to do all these leases and all these revenues by us. So finally today, when we brought them back, we are full level staff. Yeah, they're absolutely correct. Roles and responsibilities. And when you bring it from a fire hose of all these leases that have to be up to par and everybody has to pay on time, and all these leases come to expiration, we have to renew it, it's kind of difficult. And the reason that we praise this report, and there's a lot of things in that report already started changing, and it was very beneficial. I know I'm talking more than I should be. I apologize. But to tell you what, Project was one of the biggest disasters that we went through. But we did everything correctly to select it. So
that's my next question, because the city, this is not the first system that the city would have selected. The city has multiple systems. So I was pretty surprised that you know, it goes through the standard, I'm assuming it goes through the standard city evaluation process, right?
Yes, actually more than.
With the EDD division and yourselves. It gets approved.
And finance, and ISD.
And so have there been, have there been any other instances of getting it so far off, or was it just because this is, and does the city have other real estate besides the airport? I mean, it does. And the Yardi, I suppose, is used for that other real estate?
Right. So can I give you a little bit of background so I can understand where we come from? We have Yardi, the base. So
and it's an industry standard.
We did say this, but
yeah.
But we have the basic one, and staff wasn't fully trained at the time to understand how Yardi works. So when I took over the airport in 2013, we tried to do all this successful, running the real estate and getting balloon.
And excuse me, when was the leasing shift made from the master leases to these 479 leases? What year?
2016.
2016. Thank you. Okay.
So from you had 100 and some leases ballooned to 300 plus.
Right.
Nevertheless, it was a great decision that we made, and it was a great decision to go to broker. I will support that 100%.
No, the revenue was amazing. You need to make more decisions like that.
Something like that. The part that failed was Yardi was what we wanted Yardi. So I listed property out of this city, and I submitted, everything had to be on Yardi. So I saw the front line, I paid on Yardi, I signed my contract on Yardi, I put request on Yardi. So I came back, I'm like, oh my God, we have to do the same thing here. So we put out an RFP to do that. First mistake. We didn't hire an expert to help us write the RFP. So although we explained everything we needed, we did not fully explain the property management. That piece that everybody knows what property management is. So the two bidders was Yardi, there were four bidders, but the only competitive bidders was Yardi and Prodigy. Yardi's was more expensive. Their presentation, because it was the first level, was the RFP, the response to the RFP. Second was the presentation. The presentation was teams from EDD, ISD, airport, and finance. Yardi did a horrible job in setting us up. It was horrible. And Prodigy was great. They did everything we asked them. They said, everybody, police in that group said, we're going to Prodigy. And I asked 3 times, are you sure?
Because the entire thing was based on custom programming.
Exactly.
Yeah. The Swiss Army knife.
That's the problem.
So we will never, right now, we actually got proposals from Yard to upgrade our system to get the work order part as well as the payment by time.
So how much money are we writing off on ProDigiQ?
$360,000.
Does that include all of the coding? Does that include the expense amounts as well?
Yes.
Okay. And I would imagine the Yardi system is going to help with the rent collection and the reconciliation process, right? Yeah. So another area two other areas that were surprising. One is the teams. I guess, and that's part of the roles and responsibilities as to who is going to handle a specific tenant request. And so, you know, I think that's a roles and responsibilities issue that if that was clarified, you wouldn't have teams wasting their time trying to figure out who's on first with this. Right? But I guess there was another comment that was perhaps related, which is about whether something is expense or capital, right? And so the question is, that's an accounting policy. It seems to me that throughout the city, everyone would be pretty crystal clear on what is expense or capital. What is it about the airport where they're still getting confused as to what expense or capital is? And then, from what the report says, it's one of the key issues that holds up actually getting anything done because the teams don't know which group is supposed to be doing what. So, is this still an ongoing issue? Has it been resolved?
Well, it hasn't been resolved yet. And I'm sorry, I should let you finish. The issue is the work order goes out, right? And the work order says we have a leak, right? You have no idea what's there. The tech shows up on site, and it is a leak. But what that person sees is he sees that leak's been running down sheetrock, right? And now it's in the carpet. It's probably behind the walls. It's damaged some furniture, wherever it is, right? This leak has been going on. No one's seen it, and it just has become a bigger project. So it's no longer, now it's more of a remodel versus just shutting a valve off or drying down some water. It's now more from being something that tech can do. It's now a bigger project, and that's when it gets kicked up into the capital project team. I don't know if it's actually. I don't know if that doesn't mean it has to be a capital project, but it goes to the capital team because they have the resources to actually take care of a bigger project, right? That tech isn't going to be able to take care of what he's shown up to fix. So it gets elevated to the capital projects team so they can make sure they bring the resources to fix that. So I don't think it's literally an expense. From an expense to a capital expense, right? Those are two different accounting
streams. Written in the report, it's like, if you have a $50,000 issue, right? People were not sure if it was going to be capital or expense. So it just seems to me now, we established that the city has other rental properties or other leased properties, right? Does this problem occur in those properties as well? Outside of the
I think they're triple net, so I don't think they have. I'm not 100% sure. That's
anyways, I mean, this seems to be, again, roles and responsibilities, and this is more, crosses over more to the financial or the accounting policy side of things. But it seems to be something that's relatively basic.
We don't use we know what capital project is, what expense project operating.
Right.
We have the funds of two different divisions that I oversee both now.
Right.
So to the example he provided, the problem is the response that we do because the capital team is at the airport and the maintenance team is at the airport, but the operating fund managers, which not the manager, but the analysts are over at the yard. So the work order system we have is so is not to the par budget that we have today to be able to, when somebody puts it in, that it goes to the right person quickly. So we respond first, the maintenance responds first, and says, okay, it's bigger than that. Then he kicks it up to the capital team, It's not there for a specific reason to address that. It's not knowing what we charge, it's just how we deal with it as a collective team through the resources that we've lost with it.
I would think of it. Are there any examples where something's get reclassified from capital to expense, or vice versa after the fact?
You know, with I'll give you recent example that can help you here.
Yes, I have one. My name is Diana. So basically, the way that it works is, in this example, we have an issue with an AC unit, so the work order is entered. The airport maintenance gets dispatched to take a look. If they cannot fix, they'll come back and then they'll dispatch the in-house specific, what is it, a trade. If the HVAC trade in-house cannot fix it, then they'll come back and say, hey, you have to go out to an outside contractor. And that outside contractor will come out and they will say, you know what, this is going to cost this much. So the process that we have right now is that anything that goes over 50,000, then I will incorporate the engineer or the architect to take over that project. So that's our limit. But the process that it starts with creating a work order, our airport maintenance to take over first. If they can't handle it, then they'll just go back into the dates. So it's a system that, and that's the process right now. So at 50,000, that's the mark where we start involving architecture and engineering.
There is times that when this team at the facility site is integrated, because they're looking at the entire city, they're not just dedicated to the airport. When they're in there, we have tenants screaming, I need my AC to work. Sometimes we utilize our architectural services at the airport dedicated to help us out so the tenant can get the responsiveness required, so they don't require rent credit and all the other things that come with it.
So when you implement the yarding, now you're going to go full steam on yarding. Is that going to help you streamline this and get rid of the ambiguities?
That, and also we're looking at upgrading the maintenance connection, the old version of the maintenance connection in the facility side, so it becomes more streamlined, more 21st century to be able to respond to it. But the staffing levels are not up to par yet. We're getting there. We still have vacancies at airport maintenance. Finally, we have fully staffed at the airport just recently. It takes time to get them active.
No, I completely understand. I think that takes care of my couple of questions.
Chair,
Any other?
Chair's approval, I did receive a request to speak on this. Ms. Martin, want to speak on this? It's going on.
Yeah, we done with questions?
Yes, sir.
So I understand we have some issues, and it sounds like some of the issues are due to staffing, some may be due to poor procurement years ago. How long or how much after this report will it take to get everything up to par? And my second question is, how understaffed are you still in areas of the airport, not only management, but
on the project management side, including our staff assistant, we have one vacancy right now. Not a vacancy, but a person's out on extension. On the maintenance side, we just brought to council at mid-year changes to the airport maintenance. Once those get recruited, we expect in the next couple of months we'll have a full team there and a dedicated supervisor or on the airport. To answer the first question, we're hopeful within a year or so to be able to streamline a number of these recommendations, like resident recommendations, including partnering with somebody to come in and help us to address all of them. So that is the goal.
Of the license agreements and leases at the airport, how many are license agreements, how many are leases?
How many items?
You can have an airport.
Yeah, like 100 and 120.
120 to 130.
And is the outside leasing company really helping?
They do actually, they're a backbone, but what we're trying to do is create a robust property management team internally that we can start waiving them out of the airport. That's important to us. We have a team of city staff that they're well versed in property management that will transition us beyond 2020. That is the goal.
What's not identified in this report that you still need to fix? I want to create more work for you.
No, I'm okay. It's processes. To me, is that our whole point, and we did a significant improvements, is when you enter into an agreement with the tenant, right? How long it takes to execute the contract, right? We are very quick. I mean, by the way, before it would take 6 weeks and more. Now it's more than 3 weeks. So so that is something that we're going to continue looking into improving. That's it, and keeping staff retention. That's the other thing. People stay
in executed leases. That's including other departments that have to work with you to execute them, or is that
it's
something
in
you're
no. Our bottleneck is internal within our department. So by the time I look at it, I put it through. We are more of the bottleneck than once it gets outside of us, it's critical.
Just one last point that attention on what Committee Member Bill Brock just said. If in fact part of the function is going to go away if the airport is closed, does it make sense to try and phase out Aerolex or a third party, or does it make more sense to basically kind of estimate what may go away and have them handle that, so you're not faced with having to hire city staff and then let go of city staff? It just seems to me that in this kind of situation, having a flexible organization is critical.
Let me answer with not having a specific plan or a strategic plan fully executed. Since the report was done, there is strategy what happens to that plan. So
correct.
There is we started in public works my own time. To me, having a trained property management team, as we said, there's properties outside the airport. I do not perceive in the very near future that we're going to eliminate every single property at the airport. Although the planning process is not finished. If I was a betting man, I can't see in the next 10, 15 years not to have properties at the airport that is somebody to receive.
No, I agree with you, but the thing is, I don't think anybody has a crystal ball, and so as to what stays and what goes. So just to minimize, the heartbreak of psoriasis of having to let go of, staff that everyone has invested heavily in, I'm just suggesting that you think of a flexible organization.
I understand, and we're going to minimize Aerolex, get rid of them completely. I just don't see it in the very near future, but we're hopeful. Most of the properties that they oversee are the Asian hands. They are not office spaces. They have some on the lot. So, as I said, as you said, we do not have a crystal ball. Right. Based on what I know today, I believe that our team will be well versed with roles and responsibilities to be very successful.
All right, so I have to apologize to our members. So huge apologies. So I think we have speakers, please.
Good evening. On the airport property management study by Moss Adams, I saw a lot of recurring themes. Staff is complaining about the amount of work they have to do, even though the airport has been fully staffed since November 2022. Blame the new influx of new employees, as well as the city council changing the leases from master leases to direct tenancy in 2016. Airport staff duplicates work due to roles and responsibilities not being clear, as well as staff being concerned about their jobs as the airport closes in 2028. IT system support and data utilizations are still needed, otherwise the airport will continue to have a lack of accurate accessible data to help in decision making, as well as establishing standard reports and KPIs. Other areas that seem to be lacking include property maintenance, long-term planning, communication, training of new employees, planning and project management, accounts receivable, record keeping, and maintenance contracts. So might it appear that many city staff have these work habits? It's similar to the staff's actions of significant lab time and includes the receiving and expenses of funds in the community services department. Here my question would be, since the city has such high wages for city employees, are we the residents and tenants of the airport getting our money's worth? I really have to question if we are. Thank you.
That concludes our speakers?
Yes.
Thank you. With that, do we have a motion to receive and file the Los Angeles report?
I'll move.
Second.
Take a look. Want to take a vote? What do I think again? Is it a vote?
You can do a voice vote.
A voice vote. So yes.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. And we're off to item 6, the permitting. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're on to the permitting efficiency study update. There is a staff presentation.
Yes. Is the PowerPoint on this? Yes, I have it on here. Is it one? Yeah. I'll continue to work on it. It's working.
We can't seem to get the PowerPoint going. So nobody minds doing any objections from the here.
No, it's working.
Fantastic. Good evening, Vice Chair and subcommittee members. I have to PowerPoint on my phone, so I'm just not able to follow it. Apologies for the exact difficulties.
Just don't ask me to repeat what you've got written on your phone.
My name is Ariel Sakaris. Is it working? My name is Ariel Sakaris. I'm the building safety manager. I'm here. That's why I didn't want to stand over there, because I'm not a high volume speaker. I'm here tonight to provide you with a progress report on the Moss Adams permitting efficiency study, which was completed in May of 2021. This is now the third time I've been to the subcommittee to provide updates and progress reports. Before I get started, just want to mention that there were some materials emailed to the subcommittee earlier today, and I have some hard copies here if anybody would like something more tangible to look at. The two items include a colorful table which identifies all the findings in the progress report, in the efficiency study, as well as a handout from our economic development department. So I'll be referring to those in a couple of the slides. Oh, there we go, we got the slides working. Fantastic.
That's a recorder.
What's that?
That's a recorder.
Oh.
I
I touched a button, but it seems to still be working. I guess I'll move back up here.
I'll take a copy of the long scale.
Has anything changed in that from what you included in the draft?
Should not have changed. From that, I don't know, did you do anything different from what you had what you guys had done for the progress report. Did you make any updates since the last time the progress report was done?
The progress report showed 11 items that were pending. There's still 11 items pending.
I haven't counted them. I'll look at them right now, though.
So this is the next button.
Okay.
Next.
There are 10 items.
10 items.
Okay.
So there may have been a minor change. I don't recall changing anything, but yeah, there are 10 here. So, just a quick reminder, the key findings that were identified in the 2021 permitting efficiency study were to review permitting requirements in the municipal code, looking at potentially streamlining definitions, thresholds, as well as roles and responsibilities, to look at to streamlining the plan check and inspection processes, mostly from a technical standpoint with a more user-friendly system, also to provide more guidance, checklists, and tutorials both for staff and customers, as well as establishing a more organization-wide priority in processing and working on plan checks. And lastly, just overall improving customer service, implementing a service philosophy across the organization, their continued efforts in redesigning and improving the website, providing more user-friendly materials, including technology, as well as looking at providing a point person that could be available for customer inquiries. So those are generally the key findings that are pulled from the study. The findings were divided or separated into 5 categories: staffing, code review, process improvement, technology, and customer experience. As I mentioned, those are the 2 handouts that the subcommittee has been provided. This is the progress report, which includes all of the findings of the efficiency study. I'm not going to go over every single item, but for purposes of reading this table, it's separated into the top section of green, which are items that have been completed. I'll be focusing a lot on the items completed section. The items in the middle that are more lavender are items that are in progress. And then the balance, which is more of a salmon colored on the table, are items that are still pending. This is the handout that was prepared and distributed by Economic Development. And it's the Santa Monica Open for Business handout, which summarizes and identifies the improved zoning and permitting rules that have been adopted by council over the past couple of years that have made opening, permitting, and improving businesses simpler in terms of reducing. Some examples are eliminating parking requirements for certain changes of use, relaxing alcohol exemptions to expand opportunities for administrative approvals by staff, as well as also eliminating obstacles that used to exist for occupying the space that had been legal non-conforming. Those are just some examples, and I'll talk about some more in a second as well. Just wanted to give you at least a general idea of this handout and its purpose. So some improvements that we have completed in the past couple of years, and I intentionally put this one first because this is the big ticket item that, in my opinion, will have the biggest impact on the permitting process. But we have completed an RFP to release to the public soon, this should be shortly, for a new permitting and land management system. Earlier this year in January, we upgraded our project doc system, which is our online plan review system. We've moved our construction and demolition review process online. Construction and demolition review process it's a state green building requirement where a certain percentage of construction and demolition waste needs to be diverted from landfill, so they need to show who's hauling it, where it's going, what's going where. But it had been an entirely paper process before. That has been fully digitized. We have developed a host of process explainers on the website. I can speak for building and safety. We have about a dozen last I checked. But as you all know, the permitting system spans across just building and safety. There's many more groups that are involved, and there have been process explainers developed in other work groups as well. We recently implemented customer surveys to reach out to folks at 2 points during the process, one at permit issuance, and again when a project is completed. The work groups, we have designated staff from each work group involved in permitting. We meet on a monthly basis to provide updates on things like the RFP system, public counter hours, or just any inconsistencies or problems that staff experiences, either in plan review, permitting, inspections, anything in the development realm. I send out a monthly report to all the work groups of their plan review turnaround times. We developed a parklet handbook, and we have also developed an ADU handbook, which is not yet public because the state keeps changing the rules and we keep needing to change the handbook. But it is in complete form for the most part. In terms of streamlining plan review, we've removed work groups from certain scopes of work. Some examples are for EV charger and battery installations. We've removed planning and mobility. For re-roofs of buildings that are not landmarked and are flat, we've removed planning. Interior commercial TIs, where there's no change of use, we no longer route to planning. Interior single-family residential remodels, we no longer route to planning. Planning has been very cooperative in this process, as you can see. And for residential solar panel installations, fire is no longer involved. And rent control has stopped reviewing single-family residential projects. For zoning and land use, the council members here are well aware of the IZOs that have been adopted in the past couple of years and now been made permanent. But they have relaxed land use restrictions and limitations in a variety of ways. We've allowed more permissible land uses across the city. We've developed a program for outdoor uses on private property. We've removed limitations on number of restaurants along Main Street. We've relaxed parking requirements for changes in use. And what that means is there used to be, if you were changing to a new use that has a different parking requirement, if that delta in parking requirement was 3 or less, you didn't have to provide the parking. This standard increased that number to 10, which is very helpful. We exempted unenclosed rooftop areas from FAR requirements, and we already had a standardized alcohol exemption process, but we further expanded that flexibility to remove its applicability to only sit down and incidental takeout. So now incidental takeout can be part of that process. We allow service in disposable containers. We remove limitations on number of TVs. We remove the minimum requirement of alcohol gross revenues. And we've also expanded the allowable hours of operations for businesses that qualify for an alcohol exemption. So with that, I mean, just briefly in looking at the table, that is it for the slides. In terms of things that are still in progress, of course, as I mentioned, we're investing in a comprehensive permitting system, which that RFP has been prepared. Staffing levels, we continually struggle with. Council has approved restoring a number of positions in the permitting process. However, just due to people leaving and vacancies, that continues to be an issue, but we are maintaining and continue to work on that. And the website improvements. As far as things that are pending, a lot of them are very reliant on this new permitting system. And a lot of what was found in the efficiency, or in the Los Angeles study, hinges on the new system, because that is right now probably the clunkiest and the most outdated aspect of the process that we have limited control over. In my opinion, I'm very proud of the staff in the different work groups and the amount, the creativity that they've shown and the amount of effort and action that they've put into things outside of the tech system, which as I mentioned, we currently have no control over. We're working on securing a vendor and getting that put in place. That is the progress report. If any of you have any questions or would like to discuss anything, I'm available.
Before we do a questions, I think we have good summary.
Hi. In my personal experience with Mr. Sakaras, I'm wondering, with the license partition of the NRDC building, I'm not sure who's getting the customer service, because it seems like a joke to me, because the neighbors to the projects do not count in the administrative approval process, which has become discriminatory and harassing to affordable housing tenants, as well as to the disabled by not enforcing municipal code and permitting. And afterward, brought to the attention of Mr. Zacharias, our Executive Director of Housing, David White, they say they'll help and then stop returning their calls. So that's the customer service you get from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Committee member Davis.
Thanks, Ariel. Mr. Sakaras. I'm trying to be informal here. Obviously we've done a lot, we're in the process of doing a lot, we still have more to do. In terms of sort of getting through all the things we need to do, obviously some of this is very dependent on technology upgrades, and we've got the RFP after that. What are the other hurdles? Is it staffing? Is it training for staff? Or is it that the council still needs to streamline more processes? What are licenses for everything?
Exactly, yeah. Start handing them out. To your point, the permitting system, I think, is a key factor. I mean, some of my staff might kill me for saying this, but with a better system, that improves our staffing problem. Because currently, we feel the same pains with the system as our customers do, because we're using the same system. But staffing levels, as I mentioned, do still continue to be a struggle. One of the findings of the study was also developing guidance, checklists, and better instruction manuals. We can't do that now because we don't have a new system. So those are the next steps. The RFP, I thought was going to be out already. It should be out soon. And that's, we'll start getting vendor proposals in within a few months and go from there. But I would see we'll call them hurdles, but the next steps is being working through the RFP, getting that system in place, and then reevaluating staffing. Because I do know that some of the work groups outside of building and safety, regardless of a better system or not, are having trouble being able to support the planning process.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes.
So, following up on that, what of the other 87 cities in LA County, what would you consider would be the platinum standard right now?
Is that a question for me or for you?
Ariel.
Okay.
But you can answer. Sorry.
Well, I've worked for a half dozen agencies in my career, and I don't think anyone was ever accused of being good or quick at building permitting. So I'll start with that. The one comparison I do hear, we do hear about a lot here is LA. And what I've learned is they have coders that work before staff. So they're able to code a whole new workflow and process for like solar permits, for example. So I think having, and that boils down to staff resources. So I would have to say BLA as far as a platinum, but then again, I also hear my next door neighbor's been trying to get an EDU for 2 years, and he's an hour. So you hear different things from different people.
So you're mentioning the RFP going out. What is the timeline once the RFP is out, once a system is selected, until you believe it will be online and helpful? What's your outside timeline right now?
Yeah, it's dependent on who we select, because there are two options. I fully suspect that our current vendor will submit a proposal, and an upgrade to their system would be, I'll use the word simpler in quotes, quicker than developing an entire system with a brand new vendor. So it depends on that. Working with our existing vendor would be conservatively 10 to 12 months. A new vendor is, you're looking at 3 years.
Wow. In your department, if you were to be able to hum as efficiently as LA may hum, depending on the circumstances, how many additional staff members do you need in your combined departments to get it working?
Currently, our permitting staff, just as of a few weeks ago, is fully staffed. So we're training 2 new members, so I want to wait and see before I comment on that group. We are lacking in plan review staff. I'd be remiss to give you this scenario that with all the development that you see happening in the city, we right now have 4 people in building and safety that are reviewing plans, which is a huge lift. But as I mentioned earlier, there's... So
wait, go back. I'm sorry, I may have lost you then. You said you have 4 people right now. What should you have for a city our size with our workload?
I would say that we should have 7 at least.
So you're 3 short. Okay.
And that's more along the lines of what we had pre-pandemic as well.
How is the stability of the department? Because I heard of the people that there wasn't a lot of stability. Are you retaining people? Are you retaining key players? Whichever makes more sense in the question.
Yeah, I mean, there's always people leaving for growth opportunity and just personal reasons, but I do feel that in the last couple of years it has been more difficult for a variety of reasons to keep staff.
So you're more stable?
Less stable.
Less stable?
Less stable, yeah. It's difficult. It's become more difficult to keep staff.
And out of the 10 priorities, I know you're supposed to do all of them, and you mentioned permitting. What are your next 2 or 3 priorities that you need to solve?
I don't have these memorized. So one important one is, as I talked about in one of the earlier slides, is just leveraging a change management framework across the city and getting the other work groups on board in terms of being able to prioritize planning, for them to have the staffing to effectively assist in the process. And I think the efforts from economic development in terms of, I don't think we have answers to this yet, but I think it's critical in looking at trying to define small business or trying to find some way of categorizing a group of businesses so that we can then codify something or provide some regulations or processes to help them get through the process quicker or more smooth.
All right, young lady, what was your platinum standard city that you were ready to answer that.
I was not ready to answer that. Actually, Jeff, I don't know, from a real estate perspective, do you have any?
I have horror stories.
Yeah.
I don't have anything that
I think
that I can tell you, I can give
you
examples of other cities and let him go against that.
I think we talked about this when we initially presented this. Permitting is an area that is ripe in every municipality because we do so much of layering on regulations by council resolution, by staff good ideas, right, and also by state and federal regulations. And very rarely have the opportunity to take that step back and say, can we streamline? Because we're always trying to keep up with development activity. So lots of cities have a reputation for being challenging. Santa Monica, I think, is one of the few clients that we have worked with where you've got a robust economy of folks that help you through the Santa Monica process, right? And that's something that we don't want to have because that makes it less accessible. I agree that City of LA, again, they have quite a bit of resources. If we were to look, I would also look at folks who had done recent system implementations and really taken that focus on change management. So actually changing our processes. So not in LA, but the City of Bellevue, Washington is a really good example. A neighbor of theirs, Issaquah, also, they took a really drastic approach post the last recession, actually outsourced almost all plan review. We wouldn't necessarily do that here, but there are some cities that have really
I know there are companies that approach me and approach the council members all the time saying, we can do your plan review, we can do plan check, we can do this much. We can outsource and be quick. Do those work?
They can work for very simplified processes. Where we see it work the most is if someone wants an expedited plan review, then you outsource that expedited plan review in order to maintain the current level of service that you provide to the community and for.
So your planners don't get distracted.
Yeah.
With trying to rush something and then something else falls behind.
But you have to have encyclopedic knowledge of city codes, standards, processes, in collaboration with other departments to do this work well. So that's why it's most often done in-house and done well in-house.
So my other question would be, I know LA a few years ago tried to condense their code from 1,000 pages to 200 something. I have no idea if they succeeded or failed. But you mentioned something that I hear periodically, that the city council, we've all layered so many different items into planning, into code, into all the things that it makes it much more difficult for our planning processes. Is that something as a long-range goal that should be attempted in Santa Monica, is going through our code books and attempting to consolidate, simplify, and make it easier? I know that's not something we may be able to do today, but long-term, would that be helpful to the city?
I would recommend that for every city. You know, most city charters have been very rarely updated since they were adopted, typically in the 1920s. Most municipal codes, again, are adding, right? And not necessarily thinking about, does this reflect modern business practices? That's a ton of work.
So that would essentially, over a period of years, help our planning processes, help our plan check people, help everyone in our departments if everything was simpler and very easy for customers and staff to be able to decipher. Okay, thank you.
I have a couple questions. Just an observation for Los Adams. You know, in this report, the airport report, all reports, one of the things I haven't seen is a prioritization of the recommendations. They're listed like 1, 2, 3, 4, but I don't think that, or maybe they are. Is that the order in which you think they should be tackled?
So for some of the work that we have done for the city, and for a lot of our other plans, we do include an implementation plan. So for example, a compensation study, we provided the implementation plan. For this project, it was an ask of the audit subcommittee for the department to provide the implementation plan and not us. We did help the department do that. So it really depends on a project by project basis, whether we're providing that or whether it's coming from the department.
And in the airport plan we saw, was there an implementation?
We did not provide an implementation plan.
So there is no. The RFP or RFQ, is it RFQ that's going on?
P.
RFP. How long was that in the works to pull that RFP together?
6 months. Yeah, about 6 months.
And how was that done? Was that just the in-house staff pulling that together? Was there any kind of outside input into that?
No, ISD led the effort, but it involved staff from various departments as well. It was all internal.
Sometimes a new system can be a catalyst for kind of a complete overhaul of the way, simplification that we were just discussing. Do you think that the RFP is going to move the city forward in that regard? Does the city help streamline, or does the proposed project, cut out a bunch of stuff and help streamline what the processes are going to be?
Yeah, it considers and mentions and asks for a lot of modernized tools and workflows to assist both the public and staff in making things move quicker.
You read a lot about how all the new state regulations are streamlining everything, and everything is ministerial. Is that shifting the work in the department to away from bigger projects into smaller projects? Does that mean that the resources in the department get reallocated more, they have more time to look at different types of things? Or does it create more work and you don't have that reallocation opportunity?
I think I meant.
No, I don't think it has that impact. I think what it, a couple of things. One is it saves process time because we don't have to be going to the Planning Commission and City Council, and particularly given the requirements of the projects have to be ministerially approved, it doesn't create sort of a false expectation in the community that both projects can be rejected because it's not statutorily possible. But I don't think it redirects our work. And anyone who submits a project to us, it creates an expectation and a timeline that we have to adhere to. But I don't think it changes sort of the mix of projects or anything like that.
It doesn't reduce the level of effort on new projects.
No, I don't think so.
Those are all my questions. Any other questions? Then do we have a motion to receive and file?
So second.
Voice vote.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously 3-0. Thank you. Item number 8. Is everyone good? Everyone needs a break? Item number 8. Excuse me. Number 7. Yep. Number 7. Numbers aren't my bag.
We're just getting started. Let me know when we get to it.
I haven't had that training.
You don't want to.
So item number 7, internal audit status report. Moss Adams is on the presentation.
We have a verbal presentation for you all. The memo is in your packet. So we are getting toward the end of the fiscal year. And as a result, this is a short and sweet status report. You just received the airport study. That project is complete and there were no issues. The other project that we have in progress is the enterprise risk assessment, so I'll give you a quick update on that. We have completed interviews of city staff as well as council members, and we are moving forward with our analysis. We've provided a fieldwork exit memo to the city with a summary of what we learned during our interviews. We used that to develop follow-up document requests, reviewed that with key members of city leadership, and are in the analysis phase. We also distributed an all-employee survey. We received 900 responses to that survey. We do not use the survey to develop our risk ratings, but it's a great way to check how does staff feel about these issues, what are they thinking about the direction the city is going, and there's a lot of open-ended comment options in the survey so that we can get really good input from staff, so we're going through that as well. In addition, at the request of this committee, we're including an analysis of the staff reports provided to City Council and the city's budget process in comparison to best practices, because I know you will ask what those best practices are. Those include the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA, the International City and County Managers Association, that's ICMA, the California State Association of Counties and Cities, CSAC, and the League of California Cities. We will plan to present that report to you at the next Audit Subcommittee meeting in August. Next up, we have just a little bit of an update. Because we did the enterprise risk assessment and we won't be delivering it until August, we won't be delivering our proposed fiscal year 23-24 plan to you tonight, because we want to make sure that it's informed by the enterprise risk assessment. All through the year, we collect ideas from this subcommittee as well as staff, but we want to make sure that we're all fully informed going into next year's internal audit work program. However, we do have a proposed scope of work. As you all know, we have some general fund dollars set aside for our work, and then some that can be funded by enterprise funds. As a result of the work that Jeff and his team did with the airport's interested in us assisting with developing KPIs, helping them to do process improvement, and helping them to move the needle. That scope of work was not attached to your packet, but it's been emailed to everyone and should be available in hard copy here. And we'd love to talk about that and get your approval tonight to add that to the 23-24 work plan now, so we can get started at the beginning of the fiscal year and really make some progress there. And we're happy to answer questions about that.
Is that in this one?
So Laura, was it in everyone's binders?
Yeah, it should be there now.
So it's
the last
airport KPI process.
Yep.
It's all in scope of work.
There you go.
Got it.
That's it, Mark.
Got it. All right. And these KPIs, this was put together in reference to what?
Jeff, do you want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, I think so. Again, trying to provide matrix for not only you folks here, but Stelios and his team. We're going to help them establish. We have to find out what information is available first, right? But we'll use that information to help provide some industry performance indicators. You know, it'd be really nice to know. So if the market is at $30 triple net red, and you're getting 15, that'd be something nice to know. It'd be nice to know if the market for an office space is doing $15 a foot in expenses, but yours is 20. What's electricity cost and all those things. We can use an accounting system, an accounting software to try to create a P&L for each building that'll help compare all that stuff. So that's one of the KPIs.
Is that the Yardi system?
That would be Yardi, yeah. Yardi would be able to do that. Well, we use the information from Yardi, and then we'll provide some industry knowledge as well to compare those two. But it starts with Yardi.
What's mystifying to me is that when we talk about the airport and these systems and leasing, it's as if that's the only leasing operation the city has. The city has other leasing operations, is that right?
So I can speak to that. As part of that 1920 internal audit work program, we did a full real estate review under economic development. And so that report was delivered at the August 2020 audit subcommittee meeting. You can take a look at all of our recommendations and what we learned from that report as well. And that's something that is reported on in your regular progress reports.
No, but my point is that there's processes and systems and management occurring on other city properties.
Yes.
Why can't that just be ported over in whole to the airport? Right? It just sounds like we're reinventing the wheel at the airport when in fact we have, an entire, infrastructure and process already operating other city properties. So isn't there savings, opportunities just to port this stuff over?
I believe what Stelios mentioned earlier was we tried that. It didn't work, and we'd like to use the system that is in use across the rest of the city and get Yardi up to speed.
Yeah, starting off with the airport, we'll perfect it there, and I think still is at that point, then you've got something to try to help some other cities.
Was that Prodigy Q? Is that the system that the other properties use?
Yardi is used across the city.
Yeah.
They tried using Prodigy Q.
No, right.
Stop before the.
Who tried, the other property?
The other properties, or, you know, the non-airport.
Right, so it just seems to me you can take what's happening and just drop it onto the airport, right, and just tweak for the guys that have the small plane tie-down buildings, right? I mean, but other than that, a building's a building, a tenant's a tenant in a building, and you've got an entire city thing. It just, I just get the sense that we're reinventing the wheel when we don't need to reinvent the wheel for the airport.
I think some of it might be that we have different leasing procedures for different city properties. So for example, one of our major properties we have a lot of leases on is the pier. The pier has its own process, and all potential leases have to go through the pier board and the pier corporation, which obviously doesn't exist at the airport. We also have different processes for like the ground leases and the parking structure, because if I remember correctly, when we started out with all of that, because those parking structures were with transportation dollars and stuff, there has to be where you reach out to transportation uses and stuff. I mean, so I think that's part of the problem, is that yes, we have a lot of properties, but every property, you know, it's sort of like Anna Karenina, you know, every property misfunctions in its own way.
Right, we have also properties like 4th in Arizona, right, that we're managing that are probably much like what's happening at the airport. You know, so all I'm saying is,
Potentially, yeah.
yeah, so all I'm saying is that the models exist, the applications exist, and are we looking hard at that to see where we can make savings and cut implementation times to kind of get these guys going?
We are. I mean, we look across the organization. Those two groups do look across to see what they can, you know, where they can learn from each other. I do think that the airport leases are quite different. What Lee said, but also like 4th in Arizona, in many cases, it's more of a, you know, we don't actually lease the office space, right? We lease the land. We have a long-term lease of the land. So it's not like you're actually doing all that, you know, the air conditioning and getting into actual property management. We don't do that much of that in our leases on what I'm going to call the general fund or the pier side. It's different processes. One, we are true property managers on the airport side. We are in it completely. In the other way, it's a little bit, you know,
all right, as long as you're trying to leverage what you got, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the key issue, rather than, you know, reinventing the wheel. That's fine. If you're doing that, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that's also part of why we want to look at your current systems. That's why we want to look at your Audit. We want to look at your Maintenance Connect, right? You already have those systems in place. So we just want to make sure, we're trying to make sure that they can, you know, let's get the most out of those before we start looking. If we have to go someplace else, you know, let's make sure we check what you've got already, make sure it works, or confirm it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the risk in these kinds of things is always that, you know, that kind of activity is not a core specialty of a city operation. And so there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of, you know, kind of feeling in the dark to get things sorted out, because, and so it's just trying to minimize those kinds of risks, you know, when you're moving that forward. Okay.
And can I just ask a quick question? So it says the cost of the work is $45,000. Does that come out of the airport fund?
Yes.
And so we don't have those.
Right.
Okay.
Tracking the dollars.
And it's money well spent for, you know,
Yeah, I just didn't want to be sitting there at budget time like, nah, you know, no, we can't spend $45,000 on this because we're gonna.
No, we're good.
But, and that's on top of whatever the Yardi implementation fee is going to be, right?
Yeah, it will be. We're not sure what that is yet, but yes.
But that's also coming out of the airport. Yeah.
All right, so I move that we recommend, is that what we need to do? Recommend the scope of work proposed by Moss Adams in connection with key performance indicators and process improvement consultants, and authorize the spending of the report. Yeah, but we don't think we need to go to that. Let's do it. That's my motion. Let's do it.
I'll second, let's do it.
Voice vote?
It's fun. Technically, it's money.
Yeah.
So probably we need to do, Maria, we probably need to do a roll call.
Oh, okay. Committee Member Brock?
Yes.
Committee Member Davis?
Yes.
Committee Member Carl is absent. Vice Chair Burkle?
Yes.
and chairman for the staff service. We have a majority vote.
All right. Okay, so we're on to item 8, progress report on findings and observations.
It's going to be the shortest report of the night, because you've already gotten 2 progress reports.
Oh, exciting.
So, oh, it's not up yet. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so, as you can see, we're getting more and more of our projects that are active right now. More of the recommendations are being implemented. We're at almost 80% right now. And we completed 10 recommendations since the last meeting. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up, really this is what I want to talk about today. There are a few projects that we have what we did tonight with the print shop, for example, was that we got to the point where we were able to finish that project up. There are certain things that we know are going to be ongoing, and instead of coming to you every 3 months saying we still have one pending item, we still have one pending item, I would like to consider for the next meeting potentially clearing up the HR benefits billing audit. This is an audit that was done several years ago. 2017, it's our oldest audit at this point. We actually did complete 2 audits. The billing and AR, accounts receivable audit was completed, and the print shop was completed. So we have 2 less active.
I was going to ask you that because it's the oldest bar on my chart is 6 years, 6.35 years old.
Yeah. What's that? What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the human resources benefits.
Yes, yes. So,
yes.
So the one thing that's left on this.
It's a gray bar. It's getting gray here.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up with HR benefits billing was that the only thing that's left is looking at all the different benefits that are happening because we have so many different bargaining units. And so we keep pushing it off saying, okay, next year we're going to be taking a look at the bigger benefits. The way that the bargaining units work in the city, other than police and fire, everybody else is in this coalition where we handle PERS and medical benefits and things like that. That is something that HR knows that they need to work on, that we're trying to streamline it. It is, potentially it can happen, it all depends on labor negotiations. My feeling is if we've gotten to the point now where HR knows that this is something that they should be working on, what they do in their work, and as you heard them talk about the other day when they came in, is that they are looking to be more efficient and streamline things as much as possible. We may end up having that little 4%, till kingdom come, because we may not be able to make any changes based on labor negotiations. So my recommendation would be it's part of what HR is focused on right now, and they will keep working to streamline the benefits process or the various benefits that are provided throughout the organization. And my recommendation would be if you guys are okay with it, we can actually have HR come in and do the same type of presentation that we did with the print shop today at the next meeting, and we can kind of close out that report. But I want you all to, be okay with that before we do that. Sounds good?
One of the things, I kind of went through, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13 different projects in your that are being worked on. And the majority of the projects, so of the items listed, 64% of the items are completed across all projects. But as you go through that, you did a great job highlighting the ones that have changed since the last report. What I'm wondering is, just from a presentation perspective, so we can get our head around it, this is kind of sort of dealing with this. I'm not sure that we need to see all the completed items. I mean, at the end of the day, we can say there were 20 items in this project, right? 15 have been completed. You just have one number, 15 completed, and these are just the ones that are active. So we can just focus on what's active when we take a look at the schedules, right? Because as I look at it, you've got, a lot of them, they're single-digit active. The fleet efficiency study has 4 active items, and you've completed 22 items, right?
Right.
And so, or the fleet utilization study has got 1 completed, and so I think helping us focus on just what's active, and even if that item stays on there, but it's just that one item that's active, right, would help us, I believe, just have an easier time going through the list and coming up with any questions. But at the same time, it would not risk everyone forgetting that there's something that's going on. That's my only concern with saying, we're going to pretend it's closed. I would rather see it on a list, but if we can get rid of everything else that's already been done, not to minimize the achievement that represents. And I think, and I can leave you with some charts that I did on this that just basically, can encapsulate, we're really running through this, but you've got, like I said, we've got projects on the list that, the oldest project is the Human Resources, which is 6 years, but they go, the average is 4 years, and the newest project is the Mobility Division Assessment, which is 1.5 years old, right? So there's a huge, I realize that, there's all kinds of challenges, there's all kinds, COVID, there's everything that impacted achieving these things. But at the same time, I think your pace is probably picking up and knocking these things out, and if we can just focus on the open items, I think that would help us out a whole lot.
Okay, so what you're saying is in the report that we put out in the on the website, basically, that you want us to just have those items.
I think that's what's important.
Okay, we can do that.
And you can mention all the closed items. And if somebody is desperate to find out what those items were, I'm sure you can provide that detail.
Yeah, or we can do 2 different reports, one with just a couple items, with the smaller version, and one that shows everything.
Yeah. And I think that would really be
great. And I did, one of the fire administration is another one that I think I would like us to take a look at. Fire administration has gotten to the point where they've done a lot of the training that they wanted to do. They've moved things around. What they're looking for right now is additional administrative positions. This is, in the grand scheme of things, when you're looking at all the things that we're trying to restore in the city. And frankly, I would want to potentially have a conversation with our new fire chief to see if this is still an issue. Because, again, I think fire was 2018. It's the next page, I think. So
fire was March of 2019.
2019. So, it's been a long time. So when you're talking about, well, they need 1 administrative position from 4 years ago, potentially they don't need that position anymore. But everything else, and I will say that fleet efficiency is moving along very quickly, as we said, very quickly. They added a system that is really working well for them and helping them reach efficiencies in terms of fleet utilization, things like that. So
that's your May 2019 study, right?
Yeah, the 2 of them there. So you can see that the efficiency is doing very well because of AssetWorks. The fleet utilization, they're pending right now because of things that are happening right now, the availability of vehicles, changes in regulations, state regulations, and all the challenges that we're having right now with management, staffing, and what programs are up and are not up. So we are making progress though. So okay, thank you for the feedback, and so we'll come back in August to have a quick discussion of where HR billing and benefits is at. Okay, great, thank you. And that's the end of my report. Yeah. Okay, I can jump in just very quickly. There are 2 reports, the last 2 reports that we did that we haven't included, that don't have little circles yet, little pie charts. But I did want to mention that the homelessness study, the next steps on that report are going to be part of our budget, or they're included in the budget that was just published. Several of the recommendations are included in the budget, and the homelessness strategic plan that is included in the budget will be kind of providing the implementation plan for the rest of the report. And the Human Services Grants Program was recently approved by Council, and it's including the work that's being done there, and they did mention it in front of Council, is incorporating the work that Moss Adams did and the recommendations. So
you know what? The airport study wasn't on on your sheet either.
Has it not made it on?
No.
No, because we didn't.
We just did it. What am I talking about?
Yeah, we didn't finalize it in 2020.
Yes.
So you received the final report today, but it was in draft form in 2020.
Right, it just didn't show up in.
No, we usually do it with the next meeting. It's been a long meeting. I've already gotten onto it. We usually don't show it in the status report until the following meeting.
Until the following meeting.
The following
it's
report.
Approved.
Yes. So the next meeting, you're going to see the airport study recommendations.
Got it.
In the report.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
Just in case it didn't get through this one.
Got it. Okay, do we have any speakers on this item? We do not have any speakers. I should have asked that sooner, and I didn't. So do we have a motion to file and receive?
I move that we file and receive.
Second?
And aye. And that passes 3-0.
Streamlining the permit process here.
And with that, the last item I have is adjournment. So thank you.
Make it through that.
This is probably the easiest one I've been.
Do you grab a?
Yeah, we're used to it.
I got a hotel by LAX. So you're over that way too?
Yeah.
So I'm at the Hilton. LAX.
Oh, so am I. You want to just go
The
there?
DoubleTree?
I'm at the.
Mayor, can you read this real quick?
Yes, I can.
I just want to see if can you send this to Ed?